So, I think we can all admit that Splitgate 2 can be a lot at times. I mean, sure, at its core, it doesn't look like the most complex thing in the world. An arena shooter that takes a lot of inspiration from the Halo games for its core gunplay. Pick a weapon, jump in, and shoot some shit. How hard could it be? But then you add in the portals and the movement mechanics that the game offers, it can be enough to send your head spinning at times, like you're playing checkers while your opponents are playing chess. This video is all about closing that gap a little bit, giving you guys some tips and tricks to help equip you for the chaos that is Splitgate 2's gameplay. Now, there's always an element of just practicing that's required. No amount of watching videos on YouTube is going to magically turn you into the prodigy of this game. As much as I wish that were the case, that's not actually how it works. No, you're going to actually need to get some time in and put the work in to get better. But what I can do through this video is help to talk you guys through some of the things that inform my gameplay and decision making while I'm playing. And I hope that that can help you guys out in improving the thinking behind your gameplay. Now, I really quickly want to start off this video by talking about settings, because it's a big conversation point in this community, particularly around portals, and whether or not you need to set multiple keybinds for multiple portals, or whether or not you should just run with the default settings, which is alternating portals on the E key and close all portals on the Z key. Me personally, I get by with the default settings, and not having a keybind set for each individual portal that you can set in the game, and quite frankly, I find that works for me, and for the 99% of scenarios that I'm using portals in this game, it does just fine. If you really want to min-max it, or you really are concerned about those fringe cases, sure, set up individual keybinds for each portal that you can place and close, but for 99% of you out there, I really don't expect this to be a problem. The only keybind I changed from the default layout is actually my melee key, which I've moved from my V key to my middle mouse button, because quite frankly, you're going to be meleeing a lot in this game, and having it at a much more readily available button than V on the keyboard is, very much a nice change. But speaking of the game's namesake and the portal functionality in this game, let's talk about it, right? Because I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the absolute giga-chads of this community just triple portaling around maps like nobody's business, basically zipping around, getting split balls in, 5 seconds or less from one side of the map to the other. You know the works, you know the drill. And it can be extremely intimidating while you watch this footage back and you go, well, what's the point of me even playing this game if I can't do that kind of thing? And the main point I want to harp on here about portals in response to that, and is the overarching, dare I say, topic behind all the portal related tips I'm going to give in this video here today, is that portaling for the sake of portaling won't get you anywhere. It may look like in this footage of these absolute giga-chads portaling around at muck holy shit that they're portaling for the sake of portaling. No, they're portaling with intent. And in this game, portaling with intent is the most important thing you can do. Portaling for the sake of portaling and portaling to be fast is actually more likely to get you into trouble than it is to do anything else. Using them with intent, not just because they're quirky, is how you elevate yourself in Splitgate 2. This involves reading the map and understanding how your portals can get you into advantageous positions like sniper nests, close the gaps on opponents while you've got close quarters weapons, using them as escape mechanisms, or closing the gaps on objectives. This is what you should be thinking about when portaling. Not portaling for the sake of portaling because it looks cool and it's fast, but how you can leverage them as good utility. Portals in Splitgate 2 are a utility mechanic, similar to how smoke grenades and flashbang grenades are a utility mechanic in Counter-Strike. And just like that game, if they're used fast, haphazardly, and without intent, they're often wasted. The same applies to portals. And with that, one of the best use cases for portals, mid-firefight in particular, is actually creating either a distraction or a new flank for you to abuse. Say you've got a target down to half HP, and you want to continue the firefight, but you can't get a clean line of sight without running directly at them. Look out for portal walls. Can you get a portal behind them that they otherwise wouldn't be expecting to finish the fight off without having to traverse a wide range of cover? Further to that, using your portals as a disengage mechanic as well, and having one set up off in a distance, somewhere near your main base or your spawn point, for example, might be a good way to go as well. It gives you that immediate out if you need to get out of town quick. Off the back of that though as well, I must admit, I've seen so many people die in this game where they've run through a portal as an escape mechanic only to leave it open and just get shot through it, and I will admit, I've very much enjoyed the fruits of that labor from time to time. With that in mind, always make sure that you're closing your portals behind you if you're running from a firefight, because otherwise you're just going to get shot through your own portal and it's going to lead to an even more embarrassing death. But you can also even bait enemies with portals as well. If you're in a firefight or you're trying to destabilize a really good point hold, for example, simply placing a portal behind an enemy may force a fake reaction which gives you the moment's notice to jump on that and get the advantage in the firefight. I've done this time and time again. I've quickly jotted a portal behind an enemy mid-firefight with no actual intention of either running through it or creating a portal on the other end, and I've baited them into a reaction that has given me a critical few seconds to just keep shooting at them and to get the advantage in the fight. But above all else, folks, the main point is this: don't portal for the sake of portaling. You've got to use them with intent, and you've got to learn how to gauge that intent with your time in playing the game. I hope that helps you guys out a little bit there. On the flip side to that as well, listen out for enemy portal sounds too. Portal sounds give off a really unique sound identification when they're placed on a wall, especially when there's one placed right next to you. If you hear this sound, especially if you're in cover or you've retreated to try and get some breathing room from a fight,
new power weapon in the arena.
this will give you the early warning you need to either block that portal back off again or shoot through it as a counter engagement. Speaking of shooting through portals, your crosshair will display a red HUD element if you're aiming at somebody through a portal. So feel free to bully them back if you see your crosshair turn red. It means that you're aiming at them and it gets rid of the guesswork there. But alright, we've talked portals, let's take a moment also to talk about the factions and the gear that you should be using in the game as well. Saberisk, they're the heavy hitters of the bunch. Their weapons tend to hit like absolute trucks, but they also turtle quite easily as well with their wall ability. Their perks also really lean into dealing extra melee damage or melee uptime with their melee heal ability that they get later in their unlock tree, and they tend to feature a lot of explosive tech as well. They are the heavy hitters of the bunch. Meridian, on the other hand, are the opposite. Their weapons deal less damage per shot, but they have a higher rate of fire and tend to be a bit more accurate in my opinion. But they're also the intel gatherers of the bunch, especially with their, sort of wall hacks scan ability, as well as their deployable radar. Their time dome is also extremely overpowered for taking certain choke points in certain objective arena modes. You place one of these things down on a hot zone, for example, you basically have a license to win that hot zone unless you really fumble the shots. Eros, on the other hand here, their weapons tend to fall down the middle of the road in a way, and in my opinion tend to be a bit unremarkable as a result of that. But their movement and agility opportunity with their kit is also second to none, and the ability for them to self-heal themselves with the stim kit as well really makes their uptime something quite menacing if you know how to really play them. In my opinion, the Hyperline, Synapse, Tempo, and Trailblazer are all great starter weapons in particular, and they're available on the factions that you can see on your screen respectively. The Blitz, when you unlock it, is also a great entry-level shotgun that helps you to get into groove of the CQC action in this game as well, and it kind of makes for a good on-ramp, if you will, to the likes of the Plow and eventually the Charger, which are shotguns that are very good, but tend to have a bit of a higher skill floor and skill ceiling associated with them. Hyperline, Synapse, Tempo, and Trailblazer, great starter weapons. I recommend sticking with these while you learn the game. The Synapse in particular has really grown on me as of late. Now, this next point I want to bring up here in this video is one of the things I see a lot of Splitgate 2 newbies get wrong really badly, and it resonates a lot with my experience in arena first-person shooters in my Halo days, and that is understanding map momentum and moving with the flow of the teams. Now, that sounds like a lot of mumbo-jumbo, but let me explain. Overextension in Splitgate 2 is a massive killer. The time to kill in this game will punish players who find themselves in a 2v1 scenario. Very rarely will you be the winner in a disadvantaged fight unless you are extremely outskilling them from an aiming perspective, or you know how to isolate targets with portals and keep them on their toes, so on and so forth. If you can turn a 2v1 into a 1v1 to keep a fairer fight in this game, that will vastly improve your odds, and utilizing portals to do that is going to be king. that comes a lot from isolating targets, catching them off guard, using portals, so on and so forth. We kind of covered that earlier. But the real point here is understanding how the map that you're playing on is flowing and when you might be about to catch a wave of bad guys to the face. Are you about to walk in to a respawn wave? And the way you can tell this is by taking stock of where your teammates are, whether this be on the minimap or just on your HUD by taking note of where they physically are, and where those gaps are on the map physically. Because where your teammates aren't, enemies are respawning. And if you're a decent distance from your teammates, isolated in a lot of dead air where the enemies are likely going to be respawning, you are likely about to run into a 2v1 scenario or even worse. And that's not to say you need to be stuck to your teammates' hip the entire game either. You just need to use this to inform of where potential threats are and how likely you are to be caught on the back end of a respawn wave. It's all about building that preparedness and limiting the amount of times you're going to get caught surprised in a 2v1 scenario. Now let's talk aiming for a second here, because depending on the first-person shooter game that you play, you're going to adopt different types of aiming styles or aiming skills, right? In Splitgate 2, tracking is, for the most part, far more important than your ability to flick shots between targets. With the time to kill being on the lengthier side and with the mobility of the game being pretty damn high, you're going to be caught in a lot of long-standing, bursty engagements that are going to require you to keep a crosshair on target for a decent amount of time here. So working on your ability to track a target who is likely going to be using inconsistent movement to try and throw you off under a long burst is going to be really key at getting better in the game. Obviously, this is an exception for things like shotguns and the deadbolts, where in which you're going to be trying to get that sort of, one-shot kill action going, or of course, just the foobar or the bat where you need to aim at somebody's general direction to secure a kill. But for the majority of the default primary weapons that you're going to be using in this game, an ability to keep a consistent track on your target, massive. And once you start to master that, you'll become a whole lot more efficient in scoring kills. As you improve your tracking as well, you should also be improving your ability to go for headshots. Now, headshots are not as defining as they are in other shooters. I think in Splitgate 2, the headshot, multipliers tend to differ between weapons, but it seems to average, in my view, from around about a 1.1 to 1.2 times headshot multiplier. I could be wrong there. Let me know in the comments if I am. But overall, they can still make the difference between a win or a loss in an engagement. If we're speaking generally, carbines and battle rifles in particular benefit the most from headshots in this game. But as I said, all weapons do benefit from it, and taking the time to learn to hit headshots consistently will see you shorten that time to kill and gain an advantage in more scenarios, maybe even in 2v1 scenarios. For example, the plow shotgun can be a one-shot kill weapon if you find a headshot with it in CQC. If you land a body shot only, it won't do the job. So that can be the difference with this weapon, and again, while the game doesn't really place an emphasis on headshots, if you will, there is a certain incentive to do it if you can build that skill up. So yeah, go for headshots. And the last thing I really wanted to touch on this video, guys, that I think a lot of people don't quite understand yet with Splitgate 2, is that weapon swapping is massive in this game. I know there's the meme from Call of Duty 4 about switching to your pistol being faster than reloading and yada 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 yada. That really rings true with Splitgate. The amount of times where you're going to be in a firefight and your primary weapon's just not going to quite do the job is insane. It happens all the time in this game with how lengthy the time to kill is and how beefy enemies can be and the movement and all that. You're going to waste a lot of ammo and you're going to need a pistol to finish targets off sometimes. Switching to your pistol to secure that kill here rather than going through, quite frankly, fairly lengthy reload animations is going to make or break so many firefights in this game. Like, I know it sounds obvious and I know it sounds like such a well done moment, but I don't think you guys understand how many times I've seen people stare me down reloading with malicious intent while we're mid-firefight while I've switched out to my Goliath pistol to two-tap him straight to Jesus. Knowing full well that if they had switched to their pistol, they probably would have beaten me. They had the upper hand until they decided to commit to their juicy reload animation, which is something you can get away with in a lot of other first-person shooter games, but not in Splitgate 2. The game is very different in that regard, and quite frankly, weapon swap times in this game, super quick. Even if you're running two primary weapons, for example, or a power weapon, if you shoot someone with a deadbolt and you don't secure the kill, you need to swap to your other weapon to wrap up the final bit of damage that you need, rather than rechambering a deadbolt round. I promise you, your gameplay is going to elevate tenfold once you start adopting that mentality. But folks, with all of that said, that is going to wrap up today's video with some tips and tricks on how to get better at Splitgate 2. I will be honest, this video ended up being way longer than I thought it was going to be, but if you did enjoy it, be sure to backhand the like button. It does go a long way to supporting the channel. We've got a lot more Splitgate 2 content on the way, including a tier list for all the weapons in the game, which I'm looking forward to doing, so make sure you subscribe for that if you guys are keen for it. And I'm also working on a ton more videos for other first-person shooters like BattleBit, Battlefield, PlanetSide, the works, guys. I'm a busy boy at the moment, and I'm bringing you guys some more content very soon. If I also missed out on a tip or a trick in the video that you guys would like to share, leave it in the comment section down below, guys. I'll pick my favorite one to pin to the top of the thread. But until next time, guys, peace out, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.